Hey, it's Trisha. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you a discussion, a gripey sort of discussion on Ace of Shades by Amanda Foody. This is going to be a spoilery discussion talking about some of the things that I didn't really enjoy about Ace of Shades. If you have read the novel, awesome. If you have not and you don't want to be spoiled, I do have a spoiler-free review that I will link for you in the card. Go ahead and check that out. Otherwise, beware, from here on out, there are going to be spoilers. So just as a quick recap, Ace of Shades is about N, who goes to New Rains in order to find her mother who has disappeared. Her mother left behind a letter telling her to seek out a mysterious man named Levi who will help her in her search for her mom. And Levi turns out to be a con lord, or a con man and a street lord, and has some issues of his own that he needs to work out because of a con gone wrong, and they team up together to kind of navigate the city to help find N's mother and to unravel a little bit of the mysterious parts of N's own past. I've got a couple of sections that I've divided up my thoughts into because I had a lot of thoughts while reading this. It was a book that I didn't particularly enjoy, but I didn't hate, but it did leave me with a lot of thoughts. I ultimately gave the novel 2.5 out of 5 stars, so I'll just get into kind of the characters first. So for me, I had some issues with N and Levi in their characterizations. For me, N, I felt like went through a really unbelievable, drastic shift in characterization during the last third of the novel. It kind of hinted a little bit at her changing about just over halfway through the novel, and it seemed to come out of left field completely to have a scene of her masturbating to thoughts of Levi, especially when she, at the beginning of the novel, was such a proper young lady who had gone to finishing school and seemed to have some prudish thoughts, especially in encountering a kind of red light district. This just did not make any sense to me. And towards the end of the book, when N goes to the House of Shadows, it just seemed so unrealistic. Like, some of the things that happened there as far as her characterization. I can understand how N would kill Cedric in some sort of struggle because, I mean, he's a perv and he was roughing her up and, you know, being physically aggressive towards her, and she had gone there with the intent to kill him anyway. Like, I get her doing that and killing him in some sort of struggle, but I just did not buy and being able to shoot the doorman in the face. This bothered me for a couple of reasons. One, it was completely out of her characterization from what we had seen so far, and it was completely unprovoked. And two, I didn't understand where she learned to shoot all of a sudden. When N was struggling with the gun with the blood gazer, she had the thoughts of, I've never used a gun before, but that doesn't matter because I'm sure I can figure it out. But for her to go from trying to figure out how to work a gun to shooting somebody dead in the face with no remorse afterwards, that just didn't make any sense to me. I didn't buy it. For Levi, I love the con man with a heart of gold, the anti-hero, a man struggling with his kind of bad boy persona against his desire to do right and help out his friends and get out of the crime lifestyle. I love that type of character, but Levi just felt like such a watered down version of those tropes. He fell completely flat on that scale for me. At first, I thought it was going to be so interesting to get Levi's point of view so that we could see this struggle that he had with keeping up a persona of being this badass street lord and running the streets and having to keep on this mask of aggressiveness or whatever against his wanting to help out his friends and take care of his gang and, you know, get out of a con gone bad. I thought that that would be such an amazing thing to be able to see, to give depth to his character. And I honestly thought that we would get a kind of YA version of Jax Teller. For those of you who do not know, Jax Teller is from Sons of Anarchy, the TV show. He is a guy in a motorcycle gang who, you know, wants to be able to get the gang out of running guns and out of crime and get them all clean, but he has to do it in a way that doesn't break his persona of being a complete badass and being somebody who belongs in a motorcycle gang. So I thought we would get some sort of YA version of him because Sons of Anarchy is pretty extreme. Jax Teller is pretty extreme of a character, especially for how violent the show is. YA version of him would have been great for Levi. In all honesty, I think the Levi portion of POV hurt the story. Don't get me wrong, I kind of liked him as a character, but I just don't think it fit with the overall theme of what the story was and who Levi should have been to that story in order to really give it that extra oomph to make the story great. And the reason I say that the POV from Levi hurt the story is because we didn't get to see that struggle between the two sides of him. There were only 2 or 3 times that we saw Levi as the street lord that, you know, could believably run a gang and, you know, be good at running cons and be somebody who's really a threat. And that those times were when he was fighting with Shaz, I think, who is his third in command. And the one time that where Shaz and him fight, Levi loses that fight so badly that I lost all respect and lost all believability for thinking that he could run a gang. And when we see Levi in his point of view, he's such a sweet bean. He's so kind and has so much of a heart of gold that it made me not be able to believe the relationship that was supposedly blooming between him and N. Initially, when he starts helping out N, it's because of the money and he needs it to get right with a con gone wrong. But he folds so easily to N's needs that it doesn't become about the money anymore. And that such easy shift and how soon it happened in their acquaintance, it was just completely unbelievable for me. There was such a great possibility for an angsty or a hate to love sort of romance between the two, but because we saw Levi as such a sweet being every single time we saw his point of view and there wasn't that struggle between the two different sides of him, the relationship between him and N lost all of the tension that it needed in order to have that sort of angsty or hate to love trope. Next, I want to talk about the convoluted politics. I honestly can't speak too much in detail about this because it was presented in such a confusing manner. I ended up not caring. I guess, okay, so there was some sort of politics where this family, this monarchy sort of family was overthrown 25 years ago. However, we didn't get a really good understanding of why these people were overthrown or who replaced them, and how the replacement government was working. Is it good? Is it bad? How does it compare to the sort of monarchy that had existed prior? The gang politics were also an interesting thing that I didn't fully understand. So we've got 3 different gangs that exist in New Reigns. and each one kind of specializes in a different thing that they do, and they each have their own area. And it seems like it was structured that way so that they don't step on each other's boundaries or get involved in each other's sort of businesses, which I guess seems to defeat the purpose of gang rivalry. It seems like this gang rivalry and the areas of the city belonging to each gang was written as a way to provide some sort of danger to our main characters, so that way when they would cross over into a new gangland, that it wouldn't be so easy for them to just get the answers that they needed. There needed to be some sort of perceived threat. However, of the three gangs, we got barely any interaction with the Scarhands, and then the other gang, which I don't even remember the name of, that is supposed to be assassins, we didn't get any interaction with them. So when we cross over into these other territories, I'm not feeling the danger that is supposed to exist for when they step over into a new territory. I feel like it would have been better serving the story had we gotten an interaction that really showed us the danger that was there, and then I would have believed it. And this city of sin needs to be risque, I guess. Aside from the city of New Rains being dubbed the City of Sin and consisting of a lot of casinos, it seemed like it wasn't as scandalous as it should have been, and the author tried to amp it up a little bit, but it just fell flat. Okay, so we get a street that feels kind of like a red light district, and there's mentions of brothels, and we get a scene in a burlesque club. But in all honesty, those are pretty tame scenes. They don't add the scandal factor that I think the author was looking for. Like I mentioned before, about just over halfway through the book, we get a scene of N masturbating to thoughts of Levi. And I feel like that was supposed to up the risque factor of the novel, but it, like I said, it came out of left field for her characterization, and it seemed like the only function that it served was to show us that the city is scandalous and that it's changing her character, but it came so left field that it didn't feel genuine. And it was, I guess, meant to show us her feelings for Levi, but it could have been done in another way. You could have shown her feelings and her interest and attraction towards Levi in some other way, especially considering the scene was written in such a barely PG-13 way. It felt like the author may have been afraid to go full head on into the decision that she made of making that scandalous scene in the book. Additionally, on the scandalous front, I don't mind, I mentioned in my spoiler-free review, I don't mind when authors write their own curse words or slang that is supposed to fit into the world of the story and the characters, and if it makes sense, if it's done appropriately. However, in this world, the curse word we get is mucking. That's fucking with an M. Okay, so I get it. Muck is like dirty and muddy and grimy, and that's supposed to go in with the feel of the city, but it just didn't. It was unbelievable for me because it felt so close to the word fuck that it felt like the author was scared of making the decision to be that crass or that crude, and that it was just an attempt at using curse words, but not wanting to offend anybody's delicate sensibilities. In all honesty, crass and crude and grimy and scandalous and risque is what we expect from a city of sin, so you should just go for it. And Ace of Shades had a plot of confusion and convenience. So these ones I'm just gonna kind of list off because there are so many points that I've bulleted up to now of things that bothered me about this book, but These ones I'm just going to list off as bullet points because they are thoughts that I had during reading and right after. It honestly seemed like a lot of these plot points were put in there in a not well thought out manner, and it caused it to be so confusing that I stopped caring about certain aspects of the book. And some things were just so convenient that I couldn't swallow them at all. One, I didn't understand why N's mother was going to New Reigns to begin with. I don't think it was ever explained why she was there other than to write some sort of monarchist propaganda in support of the family that had been overthrown 25 years prior. That didn't make any sense. Is that the only reason that she's going to New Reigns? Are we ever going to find out why? It just seemed like a poor attempt at putting a reason there for N to end up in the city. 2, N gets a job as an acrobat and then just so happens to find out that her family is not really what she thought it was and that she actually comes from a really famous acrobat family? What are the odds? 3, Levi is this awesome con man and a street lord who fears for his life because of a con gone wrong where he needs to get 10,000 volts to pay off the guy to keep from losing his life, and he gets all the money and then continues to gamble it all away. 4, N, who is a person that has never played cards in their entire life, manages to play this card game of death, manages to not lose all of the life points that she's supposed to be gambling with, makes it all the way to the last round where she could have conceivably won. But she's never played cards before. 5, N magically gets the ability to control her body all of a sudden just by touching a specific card, and then shoots the timer that was ticking down to the death of Levi. This makes no sense, because why was it this one specific card? Why did she not realize that she had control of her body again when she had picked up this card several hands prior? So she's been sitting here and then all of a sudden starts hearing this voice that's telling her to listen to the music or stop the music, or some sort of voice that she's hearing all of a sudden that came out of nowhere that wasn't there to help her through the card game previously. And then she manages to whip out the gun and shoot the clock in the middle of the table when, again, she doesn't know how to shoot. How could she aim for that and actually destroy the clock? I don't know. Number 6. N's heritage is suddenly triggered at the end of the game and now she's got purple eyes. But what triggered it? And number 7, there is some convoluted bullshit wrap up in the last 2 chapters where N is casually munching away on a box of cookies and suddenly has lost all sense of urgency and fear for her life. So these are all the gripey things that I wanted to talk about. There were parts of it that I didn't hate. Don't take this video to mean that I hated everything about this book. I found it not terrible to read. I didn't fully enjoy it. I knew that if I set it down for more than a day, I'd never pick it up again, however. But there were just so many things in it that I was just like, what? That I felt the need to make this video so that I could discuss it with you guys to see if anybody else had the same thoughts that I did, or maybe somebody can explain the weird monarchy family that N is supposedly a descendant of. Please, because it didn't make any sense to me. So leave me a comment down below letting me know your thoughts on the book. What did you think about some of these more convenient plot points or some of the convoluted politics and history? Let me know what you thought of all that. And now is a perfect time, if you have not already done so, click that little subscribe button down below if you want to see more content from me in the future. And if you want to follow me elsewhere on the interwebs, I have all of my social media links in the description box down below, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!